Brown here, publisher and podcaster of KickStartCommerce.com, partnering with NamesCon to bring you my first NamesCon, or what's known as my NamesCon interviews with those who are first-time attendees as well as those who are seasoned vets. As you can see, the gentleman that is opposite of me, he is known as the Prince of Park.io. Obviously, some of y'all know Park.io as the Mike Carson's baby, and well, this is the guy that is behind the scenes, the man behind the curtain, if you will. So welcome, Steve. What's up, Steve Webb?
Not much, man. How are you doing?
I'm tired, man. I am tired. Listen, I haven't even made it through the first day, and between NamesCon and Clubhouse, I don't know which one is going to take me out first.
That's good. I don't want to get sidetracked, but I know one of the early Clubhouse people. So if anybody needs an invitation, I can't promise I can get you an invitation, but I can pretty well come close to promising, because if I can't get one through him, then I don't know that it's possible to get one.
Awesome. Well, man, what are you doing here at NamesCon? Like, why does someone like yourself attend this event?
I'm just living the dream, meeting people. New people, interacting with old friends like you. You mentioned, this is not my first. I'm somewhere in the middle, I guess, because now, since we're having so many in the pandemic, this is actually my third, I guess, which is crazy, because a year ago was my first whenever, you and I reconnected.
Right.
And again, I don't know, just to give our quick backstory, we actually went to high school together, which it's wild, since such a small world, and the fact that it took the domaining industry to bring us back together. But yeah, the big appeal for me is just things like this, interacting with people, speaking the gospel of getting away from the .com world, because I realize most people in the industry are very much set in their ways, and so
he just going
I'm here to introduce ccTLDs, and then if you really want to get wild, I'm here to introduce handshake TLDs. So just to show you there's more than just .com in the world.
So crazy enough. So then what is going on in the land of Park.io? So in case those of you that aren't familiar with Park.io, just go visit Park.io. But let me just go ahead and set the stage. Why are we seeing what looks to be end user prices in terms of some of these auctions, man? What is going on?
Yeah, I think it's probably two things, right? So like you mentioned, there definitely are more end users showing up in auctions, because I think, as we've seen, there's been a shift the past couple of years, and especially with the pandemic, a lot of people are getting more of an online presence, and I think a lot of people are having what I would characterize as sticker shock, right? If you're not really familiar with the domaining industry, you don't necessarily recognize how expensive some of the premium .coms are. And it's not to say they're not worth that, because they absolutely are. But if you're just a layman and you've never been exposed to this, it's honestly like someone that's never driven a car, for instance, right? And you go into a dealership and you just think, oh, every car is the same. Maybe, I'll just pick up one of these Aston Martins. Oh, wait, no, I don't have Aston Martin money. And so I think some of it is people coming into the domaining world and realizing, I don't really have premium.com money, but I could maybe swing premium.io money or premium.co money.
True.
And so I think that's definitely fueling some of it. And then I think also just from the investor side, people are realizing a lot of people are getting online, and so everything's kind of, that old expression of high tides raise all ships. As more and more people are getting domains in .com, it's filtering over to these other TLDs, and so I think it's some combination of all of that is kind of driving. Because I agree, things are definitely, it's a different world today than it was a year ago, and obviously a lot of ways, but especially in domain pricing, and especially for ccTLD pricing.
Right. And it's not just in .io. You all are doing what? .me, .ly, .co. You have some extensions under your belt that you're actually seeing things move. Now, some are not moving as much as others. Now, are y'all in the .vc space? No?
Yeah, we are. We actually, I don't know if we just closed the biggest public .vc auction, I think a week ago. It was climate.vc, went for $20,000.
Right.
Which I think, clearly there have been larger sales privately, but as far as public VC sales, it's at least the largest at the moment. Obviously anybody could record a private sale tomorrow and trump us, but for the moment, we have that distinction of being a part of the biggest VC auction price, at least.
Now, obviously, folks are going to hear that and literally go out and start buying .vc names. Like, what would be your word of caution in regards to obviously hearing things like Climate.vc going for 20 grand or 21,000? Like, what's your word of caution there?
So you have to be, VC is a good example of where you really have to be cautious as far as matching the use case to the ccTLD and understanding the actual market. As much as it pains me to say, I mean, there's a limited number of VCs in the world, right? And so even though there are some great keywords out there, you're inherently limited by the fact that there's just not nearly as many VCs running around as there are just general consumers. Or if you look at something like GG, for instance, in the end, there's going to be way more of a demand for esports, company names, team name, like it just in general. If you're looking at TLDs that kind of have a longer runway, there are more kind of lucrative options than VC for the long term, just because the market is much bigger. But having said that, I mean, if you have some really solid VCs right now already, like the market is going up. It's just, you do have to understand that it's not a general purpose TLD. Like it's obviously not a .com. It's not even the .co. And in a lot of ways, it's not even a .io, because IO has kind of been co-opted as like a startup domain now. VC, I mean, you're just never going to get kind of outside of that box of venture capital and kind of the ecosystem associated with it. And so you just have to understand that climate is kind of lightning in a bottle, right? Because it's such a huge, relevant topic right now, especially with the new administration being more focused on climate change. And so there's a lot of factors that went into that particular sale.
Right.
So it just, you have to understand that it's not necessarily foretelling this huge rush to new VC domains. It just means all of the factors kind of aligned for this to be a moment for this particular domain to really pop. But again, like VC has value. I mean, it's in a higher tier than a lot of these other ccTLDs. It's just, you do have to understand that it's not every domain with a VC extension is going to yield $20,000, especially not at wholesale.
Right. Yeah, and to add to it, I mean, even in some of these ccTLDs, one thing that we certainly have to remember as investors is, I mean, when we start talking about, especially, it's one thing to be investing in .coms, but it's a whole different ballgame to go ccTLD, and really you have to have a strict guideline in terms of even the number of characters within a ccTLD. I would say probably the sweet spot is anywhere between, obviously the one character all the way up to maybe 6, probably 4 to 6 being that sweet spot. Obviously, there are going to be, names like Climate, or that go into that 8 to 10 character. But it's like, really, once you get outside of that, you start talking about 2-word, 3-word, like, you don't need to be out that far. And so
I would echo. I mean, if you're going to talk about 2 and 3 words, you should stick to the .com.
Right.
Like, I mean, there've been exceptions. I mean, so like, I think electric vehicle, for instance, sold within the last year. That was 4 figures, but again, like that's such a great keyword,
right?
And it's very tech-y, and so it does match with .io. But those are the exceptions. Like it's very rare that you're going to see a good outcome right now, at least for 2-3 word ccTLDs. Like you definitely want to have a really strong 1-word or really strong kind of combination of letters and numbers or whatnot. Otherwise, yeah, like it's way safer to stick with the .coms right now.
Definitely. Now let's quickly talk about Handshake. So what in the world? I mean, are we talking about physical handshakes? What are we doing? Dapping one another up? I mean,
when it's you and me, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's how we do. But at a very high level, because I don't want to go on and on. But the easiest way, honestly, is there's a site called handshake.org that explains kind of the entire ecosystem and how it all works. But at a very high level, it essentially takes the root zones that are currently centralized in a very limited number of servers, and it distributes it on a blockchain. And so basically what that means is you now have a lot of the advantages that you would have on a blockchain as far as the distributed nature of it, tamper resistant, all the reasons everybody gets excited about blockchains. You apply that to root zones for individual TLDs. And the great thing in Handshake is it opens the namespace. So now you can actually own an entire TLD. So I won't put yours on blast that you're actually interested in, because I don't want you to have additional competition. But myself, for instance, I own .web. My last name is Webb. I own .web. So if I want to have, an unlimited number of subdomains off of .web or build a web app on .web, I can do whatever I want. And I actually own it. Like, I don't ever have a situation where some organization can come in and take it away from me. Like, I forever, as long as I don't lose my private key, I will own .web and do whatever I want with it.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of the big advantage is that I now have control over my site. I'm not renting it from some big corporation.